Hi, hello, welcome to episode 71 of Trail Society, produced by Free Trail, brought to you by The Feed. I'm Corrine Malcolm.
I'm Keely Henninger.
And I'm Hillary Allen.
And when I was setting up today's outline, I was like, man, how is everyone's Transvolcania training going? Because I feel like we are all like on the West Coast, truly on the West Coast right now. I'm home in Seattle. Keely's home in Portland. I get to see her soon. Hillary's down in the North Bay. I got to see her briefly in Seattle recently at the Brooks Trail Team Camp. But we're all training for the same race from very different like life chaos situations, I feel like. So I just wanted to ask, how's everything going for everyone?
Oh, it feels so far to be able to run.
It's not even a 50 mile though. That's what I'm telling myself. It's
short. I know. Those, extra cut off 4 miles, 46 miles. Cool. Now it's in my wheelhouse. We're good.
Yeah, done.
No, I mean, it's just that it's an early season race. I still haven't raced since Thailand. I feel like I needed to get my running legs back underneath me because I felt like that race was rushed to kind of get back to get a qualifier for like what I wanted to do for my season this year. But I mean, I'm excited. I love the energy of La Palma to it's
ignite. Magic. It's truly magic.
Oh, it's so great. And honestly, it's it's kind of scary because the last time I was there was the year I fell off a cliff. So it's kind of monumental to go back there and also try to let go of comparisons because I'm a totally different human now. So, that's it.
I was a baby runner then. That was
me too.
2017, right?
You've both done it before?
We were both there the same year, and it was like one of my first international races. And I put it on my calendar before I was the alternate for Worlds that Keely, we got to like hang out at. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't supposed to go to that Worlds. I didn't think I'd made the team. And so I was like, I'm going all in on Transvolcania, like figured out I used Steven's bike miles to like get a ticket to go to this race in the middle of nowhere. My travel itinerary was crazy. Hillary witnessed it firsthand. I flew to Tenerife and then took a ferry and then had to take the ferry on the way back out. It was nonsense, but that's the only way I could afford to do it. And I ended up dropping out because I had a bad back injury going into it, and I ended up dropping out before the final downhill. But like it feels kind of crazy to be going back many years later, like kind of in a totally different career place. So lots of memories, but like gonna finish the thing this time.
Yeah, and I was an adopted Solomon athlete at that point, even though I was
great.
In the North Face. Anyways.
Huh. I was like, we're the Americans. We're gonna hang out. It's gonna be great. We snuck Patty into dinner a bunch.
Yeah.
Really, how's your training going?
I've never been. My training I feel really great training. I'm still really figuring out the ferritin thing. I got retested 4 weeks after taking super high dose iron and nothing changed. So we're just like, oh, well, that's weird. So just figuring it out.
There's a couple other things that you can look at, like reticulocyte count and a serum iron and some other stuff to see kind of where the iron's going. But it takes a long time too. Like ferritin's not an instant.
My iron had gone down though.
Your iron had gone down during that.
Yeah. So just interesting. Anyways, it's not an instant bump for sure. So, but we're just kind of like, it's interesting. So we're just going to dig in a little deeper. But energy wise, I feel a lot better. So that's fun at least. And training, I think it's going pretty well. Started getting some more gorge miles in and luckily I get to do most of my training miles with Rachel Drake, which is amazing. So
it looks fun.
It's really fun. And I'm going to pace her at state. So it just feels like we're training for the same thing, even though we're not, which I think just helps with anything. And I'm just stoked to go. I'm bringing my mom with me and she's never left the country and she's so excited and I'm so excited for her. And so it's going to be a thing. I'm not sure what kind of thing yet, but it's going to be a thing.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a cool race and it's officially official. Adidas Terex, my main sponsor, is the title sponsor for the race. Which is really cool. We've come on as the head technical sponsor for UTCT in November as well. So it's really kind of cool that two of the races that I love so much are now Adidas Terex events officially, which means I've got a home there whenever I want, which is
you're on the right team.
Pretty sick. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Go team orange vibes, I think is our season motto at this point. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today, including all the kinds of mistakes, mishaps, and oopsies that we've done training, traveling for races, doing the darn things, making misadventures out in the wilderness, etc. And you guys also sent in a bunch of really cool, funny, and sometimes kind of silly mistakes that you've made as well that we'll get to read out later on. But first, we've got to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, The Feed. I had a listener send me a bottle, one of my Bellingham Peeps, and it says the Trail Lorax on it, which is so cute. So I've got both the brand new bottle, which is dark navy, and it's beautiful, and I've got our old bottle from last year. I had lost mine, so it was like just like total happenstance that I got a brand new one. But if you want a cool bottle from The Feed, new bottle, yeah!
I don't have mine yet. Dang it!
You guys are listening to us like just hold our bottles up to the screen right now. It's really good audio content for you, but The Feed, we're stoked. And you can be stoked on it too. You can go to www.thefeed.com/Trail Society, and there you get $20 a quarter, $80 for the year to spend on snacks. I've got to be honest, guys. My friend Christina, shout out Christina if you're listening, made me some amazing banana bread with chocolate chunks and sprinkles on it for my birthday. So I've been cheating on my waffles the last couple days with really special banana bread, but I'm wondering what you all have gotten most recently.
Well, I think I told you this last time, but the meal packs from the spring, have been like, I just really, really like.
You're digging that matcha, huh?
Not all of that. It's a strawberry banana one as well. But because of, I've been getting some consistent training and some like long bike rides, and because I'm training for some long bike races in addition to the running, I've just been really upping my protein, game post, activity just in general. And so my favorite one is the Never Second. I think it's the P30. So it just has packed with protein. So
nice. The protein game. We're on the protein game and gains in our household as well. Keely, what about you? You coffee fiend over there.
I know. I'm not even going to talk about coffee because that's a no-brainer. So I got a recommendation from Heidi Strickler, friend of the pod, for the Momentous protein. She said it's one of her favorites. I ordered it. I have not received it yet, so I'm really excited to try that one out, and I will let you guys know how I like it and how JT likes it, because we are always on the quest for new protein powders. He is a smoothie fiend. And the other thing that I tried recently, which I've had before, but I just kind of forgot about them, was the Picky Bars. I feel like they go down super easily, and they're like pretty balanced. They're not like overly full protein, overly full of carbs. They're kind of like a nice combo. So
you're such a bar person. You both are bar people.
I'm a bar person.
You guys like, I feel like have not met a bar that you don't like, and I'm just like I'm an ant. If Rice Krispies are a bar, then count me in. But otherwise,
Scratch has one. Scratch has a Rice Krispie bar.
Oh my gosh, Corrine. At Salt and Straw this last month, there was a special edition because the cereal series sold out really quickly. So they added an extra batch of Rice Krispie treat ice cream. And I had it on Sunday night, and it's maybe the best ice cream I've ever had. So you can come to Portland and try it.
I will be there next week. So let's do it. Let's go on an ice cream date. I'm very excited. Okay. So if you want to try The Feed, again, www.thefeed.com/Trail Society. Join our nutrition club. Get them money. Get them snacks. You guys talk a lot actually in your mistakes about when you snacked too hard or where you didn't snack enough. So go get that snack money. It will treat you well. Keely, you plopped in a cool longitudinal study on post-collegiate female athletes and eating disorders, and I'm wondering if you can walk us through what's going on there.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys follow the Fed Collaborative, but they do like really good like visuals on studies around these kind of things. That's how I found a lot of studies, and then I can dive into them further on my own. But yeah, there was a study published in 2021 by Thompson and team looking at, the prevalence of eating disorders in collegiate athletes and how that prevalence changes during retirement. And I thought it was very interesting because this isn't talked about, but it's been really top of mind of mine lately, just because I've had this conversation with a lot of retired athletes. I'm not really sure why. But they found that athletes who didn't have an eating disorder in college it was very highly likely that they would develop one while they were in retirement. And then those who had an eating disorder in college, over half of them continue to have that eating disorder out of college. So it's like, even athletes who don't have eating disorders in college are at risk at developing one after college, because, it's like a very big shock to the system to go from
identity change, right?
Yeah. Identity change. Like, no longer are you in control of maybe your body as much because you're not training as much. You're not as you don't have as much of a direction. like, I don't know, it seems like it would be a really hard space. And I think all of us can relate to this a lot because we've all been injured. And while it's not necessarily the same, I think it gives you a little bit of a glimpse into how someone might feel. So I thought it'd be really interesting to just discuss that, because retired athletes, I don't think are talked about, but like they are not in a great place all the time. And I think that they could receive some support too.
Yeah, this whole like transition from athletics to real life is a big issue, both collegiately and then professionally as well. There are a number of organizations, like if you're like in the Olympic athlete pipeline, for example, there's a bunch of organizations that are geared specifically towards kind of making that move into what, you know, we can kind of call civilian life, kind of like military retirement. Like you've got to learn to be a civilian, to be kind of a quote unquote normal person. But I think the same can be said for any of us, right? Whose relationship with running might be changing due to injury, due to pregnancy, due to career changes, due to family, et cetera, or family responsibilities. I think that can be a big thing. And when you posted this study in our outline, I was like, well, it sounds like it's about control, right? Like it sounds like at least one of the potential options, right? A lot of my friends who've experienced disordered eating, it's because they don't have control over something. My mom had an eating disorder in college, same sort of thing. Like for the first time in a while, like she didn't have control. She wasn't competing as an athlete anymore. And she that gave her control in what felt like a very chaotic life moment. It's also why I think we see a lot of people relapse into their eating disorder habits or mindset or the way they think about their food and body when they're going through a moment of higher stress or turmoil. And so it makes sense, right? Like big identity shift, leaving college, new environment, et cetera. Like you're looking for control, and food can be that thing, unfortunately, for a lot of folks. But I think that it's probably an overlooked like group of humans who could use some like specific targeted support.
Yeah, and I think in some of these studies, I was kind of deep diving into a broader slew of studies than after reading this one, and it just found that like, you know, there's a ton of different disorders that they can have that are higher prevalence. However, there was maybe 2 studies. Again, I'm sure, you know, this isn't super studied right now, but it'd be cool if we keep diving into it. But 2 studies found that when athletes were given kind of educational resources and community around, you know, how to help during retirement and ways to cope and all that things, there was like a lower prevalence of these disorders later on. So it could be that we just start to see that being part of like the collegiate and professional athlete development kind of timeline, is like always kind of talking to finding a life outside of the sport. And starting that young is my thought, right? So that it's not like this crazy shock to the system that you have like one talk when you're about to retire, and that's supposed to be the Band-Aid. It's like, talk about it for a while.
I mean, like, right, that injury thing that you brought up, and I think Keely, you probably felt this in a big way with the injuries that you've experienced, right? This idea of like when running or athletics or whatever your sport is your rock, when it's taken away from you, be it injury, illness, retirement, et cetera, like it can feel like things are kind of crumpling.
I mean, yeah, I've experienced that so many times. It's always, it's always a reminder to make sure that I'm defining myself like outside of just sport. And so incorporating that, like not just in times of injury, right? I think that's so important, finding time in my day and you know, prioritizing different things that have nothing to do with sport whatsoever, and really identifying. I mean, you know, I've been open that I see a sports psychologist, and that's, you know, a common topic that we talk about is how you define self-worth. And, you know, I think a lot of runners and people, you know, type A people, they might have this doing mindset. That's how we get defined for our self-worth. Like, who am I if I'm not doing, you know? And I've struggled with that a lot. Because you can feel very accomplished, or, you know, I can feel very accomplished in a day if I accomplish all these other things. But then once that takes a different shift, and I had to experience that quite abruptly, I was surprised how quickly I fell into, you know, depression, and took a lot of conscious effort to work my way out of that. And so I try to still kind of work through that, you know, throughout the year, even when I'm not injured. But yeah, I mean, it's, and I think it's just with any change, it doesn't have to be with, you know, it's any hardship in life in general. It's like, we can all learn those lessons. I think we just learn them through sport.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Big way. Yeah. Cool. Interesting area of research, Keely. I imagine that this will be like your gears are turning. You're like, the next survey is coming out.
And I'm curious, was it was just people athletes who are going to retirement. It wasn't like gender specific.
So this first study was female specific.
Okay.
And then the other ones I dove into were kind of multi or mixed gender.
Yeah, because I'd be curious if there were differences, if it like skewed more towards women or.
Yeah, well, one of the few places that men are under researched is in this area, but they're not under researched very often. We'll talk more about that later. But this is one of those.
Not the point of what I was bringing up, but yes, I mean,
it would be interesting to see how type of sport and gender and level of sporting career and accomplishment also relates, because I could imagine like, winning a gold medal would make it a lot harder, because it's almost like you've reached the pinnacle of your sport, and like, where do you go from there?
Well, that's a whole thing, right? It's like the post-event blues, post Olympics blues, post 100-mile blues, right? Like it exists. Like coming down from that high is really hard.
It's real.
But the main reason I just brought it up just really quickly is because I think, and maybe we've all experienced this too, is like the pressure for women in sport to not only be good at what they do, but to also look a certain way. And I think that pressure would also just be increased if you're like no longer than, a professional athlete. So yeah, I would think that like that pressure for, like you mentioned, like control over your body. And then like, if it's taking a different form when you're retired and not doing as much, I would assume that would maybe be increased for women, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll keep our eye on this area of research though, because it's definitely very, very interesting. Keely, while we were making this outline, you're like, "Hey guys, I'm a little bit busy. I've got this basketball game to go to." That basketball game being the UConn versus USC game in Portland. You mad woman, how freaking sick. Okay, tell us about the NCAA March Madness, because I am hyped. I've never really been like a basketball fan, let alone like I feel like a women's college basketball fan, but I am living for it this year, and I am going to be a lifelong fan, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we bought tickets. We rallied a lot of girls in the area to buy tickets before we knew who was playing. And so when we got the details that it was UConn versus USC, we were all so jazzed. And I mean, it was an amazing game. Portland was pretty lucky. We got to host Sweet 16 and Elite 8 for this side of the country. It was really, really cool. So there were a lot of games. There was a lot of buzz around Portland. Like the sports bra was packed. There was lots of collabs. There was a couple like WNBA star sightings. Like Diana Taurasi made an appearance at the sports bra. Like, it's super cool. Like Portland was on fire for the women's tournament, and like the stadium was really crowded, which was awesome. And like even before the game, they delayed it a little bit so that we could all finish watching Iowa versus LSU, and everyone was like out in the hallway watching that on the big screen before going into the stadium, because everyone was just like glued to the screen. So it was really, really cool. Those people weren't counted in ESPN's numbers, but I can vouch for them. They were at the stadium watching on the big screen. So that kind of pivots into the viewer numbers. Like while I watched UConn versus USC, the game prior was Iowa versus LSU. We've been talking
big rematch between those teams, including the amazing Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, who were in the final last year. So those two matched up in the final last year. LSU came away the victory. So this year, obviously, Iowa wanted revenge, and they sure got it. Caitlin Clark led the team with 41 points, and the game drew over 12 million viewers.
12.3 million.
Which is the most watched college basketball game ever on ESPN.
It's not only the most ever. So those numbers too also stack up to, that is more views than every MLB game last season, more views than every NHL game last season, more views than every MLS game last season, and is like the most views for all but one NBA game from last season. Pretty cool. That is so sick. And also, I don't know if you caught this moment, and they like rehyped it in the press conference afterwards, but LSU's coach like grabs Caitlin Clark and like brings her in really close, like in the like congratulatory like kind of handshake line after the game. And they're like, "What did you say to Caitlin Clark?" And she said, "I'm glad you're like not coming back next year." And I thought that was just like so freaking cool. It was just, it was like, what a game, what a moment.
Yeah, really, really cool. And I feel like most positive things came out of the tournament so far. There was one little conundrum that happened at Portland. They outsourced, the NCAA outsourced the painting of the court to another company. And apparently that company did one of the 3-point lines a little short. And there was no like, nobody checked
it's like on one side
before.
of one of the 3-point lines. It was like super weird.
It was the front of it. So it was like very short in relation to the foul line. So it was pretty obvious. They redrew it for the game I was at, actually, the only game that had the new proper 3-point line. And it looked pretty obvious. There was a lot of gapping between the color and the new line. But yeah, kind of a lot of slam against the NCAA saying like, this would never happen in men's basketball. Really, I just thought it was quite funny that nobody noticed. And like it said, and there was like some stats being shown in the Portland Arena showing stats for 3-point percentage on the left side of the court versus the right from where I was sitting, which the right side was the wrong one. And obviously people were making more on the other side because like they were probably thinking they're shooting a 3. It's actually shorter. They're probably all going long in the on the incorrect side. So just kind of interesting, but definitely a little bit of a blip that happened. And I thought it was just funny to bring up because it was like, wow, okay, we messed up the 3-point line. It's like maybe the most important thing.
Yeah, there was a bunch of like a hype to, I mean, I just like, I love this. Like the final point, one of the final points you put in there was that the women's ticket sales are more expensive than the men's championship ticket sales. Not only that, the women's NCAA Final Four has already sold 6 times more tickets than the men's Final Four, according to TickPick, as well as the cheapest ticket for the NCAA women's finals is already double the price of the cheapest men's ticket. And then you guys can't, audio listeners, you can't see this, but I shared it on my Instagram story. The Skim posted this meme and it says institutions that undervalued women's sports and now that they're a $1 billion business. And this is like the sick meme. That's for you, YouTube. But yeah, it's just like we're all living in our Caitlin Clark era, and we're not angry about it.
Yeah, really fun time to be in women's sport.
Yeah.
Everyone watches women's sports. Those hoodies are off the chain right now. Jason Sudeikis rocking one, loved it. You got yours on. I really felt like I was left out at the tournament because I really wanted one and I don't have one.
Well, we'll have to rectify this at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just it's women's sports. Everybody watches women's sports, and we are gonna just keep yelling about it. Okay, speaking of women's sports, we're gonna move on to some results, and that includes the Barkley Marathon. Someone texted me and they said, "Hey, just listening to episode 70, way to call Jasmine Paris finishing Barkley," and I was like. Because when we recorded the last episode, it was literally like the day Barkley started, or Barkley started like later that day or the next day or something.
Yeah, it started the same morning we recorded, I think.
And so it's just like, they were like 4 hours in the day we recorded. 60 hours later, Jason Paris gets it done with 99 seconds to spare, 59 hours, 58 minutes and 30 seconds or something on the clock. And while the weather played a large role in having 5 finishers this year, like Jared has been on the record saying that if there was bad weather on the current course, because it gets changed every year a little bit, he thinks that it's unfinishable for anyone. But a lot of people are giving the weather credit, I think, for Jasmine finishing. It's like, oh no, it's not her talent or her skill or her ability. It's the weather. The weather helped. And it's like, the weather helped anyone. It also 35 other people didn't finish.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on, give the woman credit.
Exactly. It's like everyone always has to find a but if thing, but if the weather would have been bad, she wouldn't have finished. It's like, you don't know that actually.
No one, and maybe no one would have. Like, it's like,
right.
It's not like they finished. It's not like they finished with like a lot of like room to spare.
Right,
she's already gotten to loop 4 before. It's not like she's like a rookie at this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also loved the videos of her at the finish where she was like, all I could think on that last part of that loop was that like, if I don't finish it this year, I have to come back, and I don't want to do that.
And I was like, motivation.
I was like, oh, we know that feeling for sure, just in a different realm.
Yeah, that was so freaking cool.
Unreal.
Like she gave it all.
Cool.
Yeah, like really, really stoked for Jasmine. Really proud to get to like witness that from afar. I'm like, oh, I want to be there in person. But yeah, just like really cool. And it's obviously a race that gets a lot of weird press, right? Like it like makes mainstream news and people are like, wait, this is trail and ultra running. I'm sure everyone listening to this has been asked by their friends if they want to run Barkley or if they're going to run Barkley. And it's like very different from most of the races we run, but maybe not from Doyenthenon. Maybe this is like Doyenthenon, like Doyenthenon is just Barkley Junior. Like maybe. But it's really cool. They thought for a long time that a woman would never finish Barkley. And after watching Jasmine the last 2 attempts, I was pretty sure she could do it. And so for her to get it done this year was just the icing on the top of the cake.
Yeah. So cool.
No but ifs, team.
Well. No but ifs.
What the heck?
But ifs. Give the woman credit. She did it. You can't win a race you didn't start, homie. Like just like the armchair quarterbacks, you know, sitting at home typing away angrily because they're never going to finish one loop of Barkley. But that's neither here nor there. Congratulations to Jasmine. We think you're amazing. Everyone else is trying to get you on their podcast. You've already been on the Free Trail podcast and Finn's podcast. Maybe down the road, we'll just like talk to you about something completely random. But that'd be pretty sick. Jasmine, if you're listening, I don't think she listens, but if you are, hit us up. Okay, some trail shout outs at World Cross Country Championships. Arguably like the who's who of the global road and track scene a little bit. Like I think like the East Africans, like they had like a team of heavy hitters there. So I want to give a shout out. The U.S. women finished 4th, which is really cool. You know, East Africa sweeping the podium. Ali Ostrander finished second American, finishing 30th. And it was really cool. It sounds like the women's team really worked together to move up through the field, which was amazing. Christian Allen finished 37th, and then Tom Evans finished 49th. And I think just like reflecting on the range there of like these athletes, Christian has like, you know, one speed goat and is a great 50K runner and sub ultra runner, mixing it up at Trail Worlds. Tom Evans, who won Western States, mixing it up at Trail Worlds. Like that to me is the people are like 39th or, you know, 49th. It's not a big deal, but it's like, dude, the range to run a fast 100-mile and to mix it up in this like, you know, 6 to 10K mudfest is just a different ball game.
Yeah.
Just like unreal talent.
Throw down.
Unreal talent. Yeah. The last shout out I had was for Hilly's Brooks Beast / trail team teammate, Anna Gibson, now a Bay Area gal living in Mill Valley. Yay. Opened up her outdoor track season at the Stanford Invite, running the 5K there in 16:09. When I saw her, you know, she was like, I've like always run an indoor season before an outdoor season. Like, I don't know what this is going to feel like. Like, it's like my first post collegiate season, etc. Her first kind of real season was last year of like mixing trail and track, etc. I think that's a phenomenal run, but I'm sure she wants a lot more and is hungry to mix it up on her way to U.S. Olympic track trials in June. But yeah, Brooks shout outs. Woo.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked to her too, and she said that she was a little bit disappointed because I think she was hoping to run closer to like under 16. But still, I mean, it's incredibly fast. I think she said it's her longest race. And
she's a 1500 meter runner.
Yeah. So she's trying to do the double of, you know, competing in short, fast stuff and then like rip it up on the trail. So it's really cool. Yeah. It's so cool to see. Like the Brooks team also kind of building out like the shorter distance sub ultra squad, in addition to the big boys out there, the big boys and girls of the ultras. I'm thinking, I say big boys because we've got like Joe McConaughey who does like
Barkley,
runs across Arizona, you know, big things like that.
Yeah, it's a good also shout out. I don't think this was live the last time we chatted, but Cole Watson is officially on the Brooks team now, which is super sick. I knew like when he ran unsponsored at Black Canyon, I was like, what's going on here? So really excited to see Cole land on his feet at Brooks. I think that's a great addition.
Oh, and shout out to him. He actually, the week after the weekend of our team camp, he won kind of a localish 50K race. So I forget.
What a baller.
Which one it was, but yeah, he just super nonchalant. He's like, yeah, it was muddy. It was kind of cold. I was like, okay.
Whatever. Cole, you're a speed demon. Super excited to see what he does this year on his way to Western States. But tons of great racing ahead in just like the next couple of weeks. We've got the Gorge Waterfall races coming up. Keely and I will be there. hosting parts of the 100K live coverage. I'm running the 50K. It's going to be sick. That's not that same weekend. 2 weekends later, it's Mount Fuji 100 mile, the Madeira Island Ultra Trail, and Canyons Endurance runs. All are packed into that last weekend of April. It is race season, baby, and we are living for it. Okay. I just recorded the podcast with John, you guys. This is what we're going to talk about. We've been given a lot of hype, a lot of love for the Long Run podcast hosted by our really good friend John Levitt, and I actually just sat down and recorded a new episode with him just last week. We go on sort of like tax tangents. The IRS is going to come for us. It's great. It's going to come out probably in May. But it was really awesome because it was a huge update from like episode 20, my OG episode with him for the Long Run, to episode whatever, like a bajillion, 300 something, if I'm sure. So it was really fun. I'm really excited for those episodes to come out for you all as well. I don't know if anyone has a favorite episode, but his look for the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated is an inspiration. And he's got a lot of really great interviews stacking up over at For the Long Run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check it out. QRs
Friend of the pod.
For your long run, and then you need another one because you're doing an extra long run. Go over and cue his.
Yeah, just add it. Just tack it on. Save us for Saturday, and then add one of his episodes right after it.
Just make sure you download it, because I had that happen in a run, and I was like, no. I was like invested in the conversation.
Yeah. You don't run out of service. Download those episodes. It's going to save you. Trust me. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself in the woods. Okay, so today we're talking about trail running mishaps, mistakes, and oopsies. This is my brainchild because I feel like, despite having been in the sport for a hot second, I am still making mistakes. And I think it's also the way that we learn. Sometimes these moments are funny in the moment. Sometimes it takes a little while for them to be funny or entertaining. So I just wanted to chat through kind of some areas. You guys also sent in a bunch of really great ones that we'll get to share as well. And I wanted to start with travel. Like, we all have travel coming up, and mistakes can happen both domestically and internationally. An example that comes to mind for me was I was going to run the Canyons endurance run back in 2018, was flying in from Bellingham, Washington, and realized on the plane that I had booked both my night before. Like, I'd booked 2 hotels, one for the night before and one for after the race, closer to Sacramento, where I'd be flying out. And I realized that I had booked them both for the night of the race, not one for the night before the race. And I was going to be hotelless, and luckily there was a room somewhere and I was fine. But I legitimately realized that I didn't have a place to stay on the flight to the race, traveling solo, etc. So that was a small whoopsie. I'm wondering if you guys have any big domestic or international travel whoopsies, be it jet lag fiascos or being stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I have.
Go ahead.
Go for it, Keely. You go.
I have 2. The first one was when we did Worlds together, Corrine. Because I hadn't been abroad for a bit, I was like, I'm going to just stack a ton of cool stuff before the Worlds race. So I was in like 4 different countries in 5 days before the race, and was just like so discombobulated. Like, I think I started cramping at mile 7 of the race. Like, my body was
it was hot. Everyone cramped. It was so bad.
But I feel like it was a little early, and I just was like, I did not do myself any favors. Like, I think just, don't try to pack too much into your trip before the race. Try to do the vacation
post-race.
Post-race, exactly. And then for Thailand, you'd think I'd have learned by now, but I got there 2 days beforehand, which, now looking into circadian rhythm and sleep, that was probably not the greatest idea. And then also double check your gear before you leave, because I packed salt tabs, but actually they were BCAA tabs, so I had no salt tabs for the whole race.
Oh my gosh.
JT was like, where are the salt tabs? I'm like, right there. He's like, those are not salt tabs. I'm like, take it.
Oh, speaking of circadian rhythms, before we give Hilly the floor, I did the same thing for a race in India, where I was like, I'm going to travel in super last minute because I don't want to get sick. I'm not going to get sick in India before this race. So my mom and I travel in super last minute. My circadian rhythm is like all wackadoodle. And turns out, what else goes along with your circadian rhythm? Your ability to thermoregulate. And it was really, really hot and really, really humid. And I legitimately, before the 50K mark, was like hallucinating. Like I was like vomiting, and I thought the sticks on the trails were fingers. And I was just like, I was so hot. I was like, just like overheating. They had like no medical at the race. And so I ended up dropping out at like the 60K mark, which is dumb and silly and like felt bad because I traveled all the way to India for this race. But yeah, so those circadian rhythms, turns out you can't just pretend they don't exist.
Oh, yeah. Well, mine has involved international travel where I went to my first race, international race. It was the Mont Blanc 80K. I mean, technically they've redone it as a 90K because it was 90K even when it was labeled an 80K. I got there and I was like, oh yeah, we're good. Like, obviously with like, you gain a day when you fly to Europe, and I'm just thinking, okay, like, yeah, race is on Saturday, we're all good. No. The race starts on Friday. And I realized it like at packet pickup when we're just like, I was like, why is the packet pickup on Thursday? Isn't it usually like the day before the race? And I'm like, oh wait, the race is tomorrow. Or like, so I basically just arrived there, not with enough time. I think I was just so green. I just assumed that all of these races started on a Saturday, but apparently in Europe, there's a lot of races that start on a Friday or maybe a Monday or maybe in the middle of the week, like TDS on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So you really have to pay attention. Check the dates. Don't just assume it's on the weekend.
Yeah, it's like those midnight race starts too. You got to figure out what side of midnight you're on. And there are some races that even have gone to a 11:55 p.m. start because people have missed the start because they're not sure what day it's on. Is it at like which 12 a.m. is it? Except so yeah, you gotta be careful with those things. So I like the 11:55 p.m. start because it's very clear.
There you go.
Yeah.
We had one listener write in that kind of, I think, really hit this, and it was the getting way too excited and eating all of the wild new snacks in a foreign country the day before.
Oh, that was Thailand. I got a little bit too adventurous, but I was there a few weeks before, so I don't think I've actually said this publicly. Should I say this? I've said it to my friends and my coach.
You can say it.
Probably.
I was in the market and I just was feeling really sendy and oh, I'm a local now. Like I'm in Thailand, and I was eating grasshoppers and things in the market.
I mean, people, that's not that unusual there, but you're maybe I should keep my my cockroach.
No, I did. I was
my grasshoppers till post race.
I know, but then I wasn't actually there that long post race because I kind of I banked my time, so I was there before so I could try to acclimate to the heat and the humidity and do some bigger training runs. But yeah, I did that. But I was it was not race week. I wasn't that reckless, but it could have probably been bad in hindsight. But it was really fun to be in the street markets and things.
Yeah, maybe just once again, vacation and street markets. Let's hold this for post race if possible.
Don't do what I did. I was just getting a little bit too excited.
From a training perspective, is kind of the next area that I banked our questions in, and it was it could be not listening to your body or becoming obsessed with Strava. We've all fallen down some training rabbit hole. And actually someone wrote in and they said focusing on hitting mileage numbers in training at as a detriment to vertical or run time, et cetera, getting really obsessed about one metric and just everything completely falling apart. And I think the age old adage on my side is that comparison trap, right? Of not listening to myself, getting sucked into someone else's training, feeling like I need to hit X, Y, or Z thing instead of what actually I need to be doing for me personally. And I feel post kind of my big injury in 2020, 2021, it's taken a long time to kind of really stick to that and not get obsessed with someone else's training and just do what is working for me currently. And I'm wondering if either one of you have any training mishaps. And that could be different too. It could be I don't know, you showed up at the wrong location, etc.
I mean, I still fall victim to this. I think just know yourself and turn off Strava if you have to. But going into states the last year, I definitely found myself staring and fixating on other people's training and being oh, is mine close to that? Should I try to hit that? And then I would slowly maybe run a couple runs a little longer to try to hit the same mileage. And, this is like coming from someone who 3/4 of the year, I live in a place where GPS is literally the craziest ever. So
it's like 15% off on every single
you
run.
just don't look at GPS. And so it's almost like, come on, Keely, let's not look at GPS. It doesn't matter. You've never cared before. Like, you've been called slow at the start of races before because people creep on your training and they're like, wow, Keely, you're pretty slow. And you're just like, okay, like,
cool. You've
fine.
Never seen where I train.
But yeah, it's just like, if you know that you can get a little crazy getting close to a race and comparison trap and compare yourself to your competitors, just like turn it off. It does not matter. Go by time. Talk to your coach. Like, don't try to hit some mileage goal. Don't ever run through a parking lot to get to the 0.1. Like, we don't need that in our lives, and we can all kind of trend that way in times of neurosis and craziness, and we don't need that.
Yeah, someone else wrote in that that one of their biggest mistakes was not trusting their coach and trying to quote make up missed workouts. And that's like you got that like that dialogue with your coach. It's a two-way street. Like, you got to be honest with one another. Haley, what about you when it comes to training?
Yeah, I mean, that's a dialogue that I have to have a lot, is like because I think it's like, especially with like the injuries and things like that, compare myself to past self, and just to past performances and, different times of year, like worrying when I'm coming back from injury, is this compare to what everyone else is doing? It's like that whole thing that kind of revolves around comparison, either to others or to self. And it's just being really confident, like, okay, this works for me. And I might train completely different than 95% of people out there that I'm competing against, but I'm confident that it works for me and it makes me feel strong. And, that's what I have to hold on to. And the other, we've also had episodes on this talking about, Strava and kind of the comparison, like the positives, but also the negatives that can happen with it. Because I think there are a lot of positives. There can be, I think, those negatives where it's like, what about if I have a run on Strava and I don't have any of the little PRs or the trophies? Like, what then? But I think Corrine, you've talked about this. Is like, that's actually good. I try to do that on my recovery.
Yeah, I try to run really slow.
Yeah.
I like to say that I'm the slowest professional runner on Strava. It's a title that I have a lot of pride in. We'll see if I get that Strava Pro re-up. We all got sent that survey being like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Let's make sure that you're still legitimate.
I know. I also I think this point we're talking about is really interesting from a coaching perspective, because I think that some of my athletes come on and are very straightforward right away, and they'll say they have issues with eating or, have issues with such and such in the past. And others, I think, don't trust you right away. And so it takes time to kind of learn about them. And one thing I just want to say from a coaching lens is I have, and all coaches have, their athletes' best interests in mind. And so, by trying to do more than the coach has prescribed, that's just not part of the training program that we have in our minds for your entire future, for you to be really prepared for your race. And while it feels I feel really good, I should go more sometimes, which I fell victim to this too.
I was gonna say, Keely, have you ever done some secret training or some treadmill doubles that you weren't supposed to do?
I mean, I don't feel like I keep it secret. I just get my wrist slapped a lot, and I just try not to do that as much now. But I mean, I have for sure in the past, but it's trying to just remind people we want you to do really, really well. And so if we think you need more miles, they'll be on there. And if we think you don't, then they won't be on there.
Yeah, we're on your team, I think, is what's important for athletes to recognize. And the same goes for the coaches that we work with as well. It's a team. You're not a passenger. You're actively involved in this. And it's I'll have athletes who are worried that if they say that they don't feel good, I'm going to take away training volume. And it's well, I can't help you get better if I don't know what's going on. You gotta let me in. Send me the text.
Also, I think with that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just if with what both of you are saying is completely valid. I also think it takes time to learn that. It's
totally.
Your coach, you have to, in order, and this is the catch-22. You have to give a little bit of trust to then work on that relationship, right? It's give and take. It doesn't immediately happen. You can't just immediately trust your new coach. I have your best interest in mind, because you don't even know that person. But if you hold things back from them, they're never going to learn about you. So, it's that relationship where you have to have that give and take, and it takes a little bit of letting go, which is sometimes hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys wrote in things like not enough time off after racing. Been there, done that. Not listening to niggles.
Never a good idea.
Yeah. Not trusting my coach and making up missed workouts. We said that one. Not using enough weights in strength training. Someone just like, they got to go harder, heavier. Heck yeah. Not believing in myself and my coach's training plan. And I ended up self-sabotaging races, rushing back to running long distances postpartum without rebuilding a strength base first, and then following a friend's training load and not listening to my body. So I think we're all stuck in the same comparison stew a little bit there. The next one I wanted to dive into is kind of just like trail safety broadly. And I think about this a lot, about the adventures that might have like obviously gone wrong that we somehow came out okay on, but also like those near misses where we like get back to the car and we're like, man, we were really safe out there. Like, good job, team. And it's like, no, you got kind of lucky. And it's more prevalent, I think, in like the avalanche industry world where we think about that a lot more. I don't think trail runners think about it nearly as much. And I've started to think about it a lot. Examples that I've experienced include like, I've like created a loop, and like I get to where the loop is supposed to turn, and on Gaia there's a trail, and then when I get there, that trail no longer exists. Like, it is an old trail that no longer is there. I've also had to bail in the back country and like just like hope that the way we cut off the route actually connects to where we want to go. But we had really good safety equipment with us. There's just like kind of like we hope this goes scenario, but also like bee stings. We had really bad hornets here this past year, and while I'm not allergic to bees, you get stung enough, you can have an allergic reaction. And so while I have an EpiPen for other allergies, I've recognized that it's really important for me to start carrying some of that like minor safety stuff, like not just an extra layer and enough food and someone knows where I am, but like carrying Benadryl for me and or for like if Pete got stung, right? Like I'm out in the middle of nowhere in the Olympic National Park, and if I have a reaction, if Pete has a reaction, if someone else on the trail has a reaction, like, just like making sure I'm carrying a small medical supply kit that like goes a little bit beyond like my spare layer and like an extra 200 calories or whatever. So it's been learning lessons, but sometimes we have to learn the hard way when it comes to backcountry and or just like long trail run adventures. And I'm wondering what you guys have experienced kind of in this realm.
Well, not to rehash big accidents, but
so Hillary fell off a mountain. I don't know if you guys know that. She wrote a book about it.
So aside from that, like, it's also really good to sign the race waiver, and also to pay attention to, I'll say this, to pay attention to the mandatory gear. Like there's always mandatory things that I bring in my kit, even if the race doesn't require it, that I just take with me in a long run. And one of them is like a spot tracker. Like, I've been using this Motorola device. I actually got a new iPhone, and they have the SOS device that it can be activated without cell phone signal. And then just like extra layers and things like that, because you never know what happens. And then the other thing that I've been doing whenever I travel to races, even if they are local in the United States, is having some sort of travel insurance with it that kind of covers like extreme. There's one that says like extreme sports. And that's just like, I do that everywhere I go to travel, even if it's even if there's in a place where they don't have like the mountain rescue, kind of like the European cultures do.
It's state to state based on what is covered via SAR. So if you like needed a SAR rescue, which in a race scenario, it might be SAR who's conducting the rescue. So, do you need a helicopter out of there? In some states that's covered, and in some states it's not covered. And so having Spot Insurance is one of the companies that would cover it. And then if you are a member of the American Alpine Club, you can get insurance through them. It's pretty inexpensive, but if you were hurt out of country, and or if you were hurt in the mountains or woods, that insurance policy will help cover you, including like medical flights home, etc. So looking into those insurances is really a big deal.
Yeah, and those are the things that I use. So, and you can look into some other ones too for like international travel. But yeah, that's kind of it. And then equipping myself with, my own like first like safety, mountain rescue type classes. There's a lot of those courses I think can be really useful to know, just if you're in the situation when you're out in the backcountry, and to help others, and others can help you. So
yeah, woofers are a good idea. Our wilderness first responders, that we jokingly in our household call woofers wilderness palliative care. Cause like, you know, enough, like it's great. Like if you've got a minor cut or like an ankle break or something, it's great. But if your friend is really hurt in the woods, it's kind of like the keep your friend comfy while you hope that someone gets there in time type of thing. But yeah, like basic first aid, etc. Plus a little is a good idea. Keely, what about you? Any misadventures in your background?
None that come to mind right away. I'm not as adventurous as you guys.
Hillary and I get into a lot
but
more trouble.
but I definitely have done a lot of stupid stuff, like in retrospect, where you're like, oh my gosh, nothing went wrong, but that was like really dumb. Like when I first moved to Portland, I did giant runs solo that would end
Didn't
at
tell
nighttime,
anyone.
didn't tell anybody, like in cougar country, and you're just like, what was I thinking? Now I like only go out to those trails if I have a dog with me, but mainly with people. Like there's just no, it's crazy. So
And someone knows where you are, and that's like a big thing.
someone always knows where I am. And I've started doing that in other countries too. Like I was texting Jenny Quilty and Hillary before, like I would run in Thailand just to be like, hey, I'm going to this trail or whatever. Like just knowing where you are so people like can have a good starting point is really good. But this probably won't shock people. What I carry now, and I've actually used them all in the last like 3 months, is I carry in my pack a little first aid kit for falling, because people typically fall. I fall a lot. I haven't fallen in a while. Probably need to knock on wood after this. But one day I just had this realization that I can fall and cut up my knee, but I can also carry first aid to clean up said knee. So now I carry first aid, and then I also carry tape and an ankle brace, like a small, really tight ankle sleeve, because it's like you never know. You might as well.
And if you're running with a dog too, one thing that we're adding to our summer kit for Pete is we're actually going to start carrying a small mesh muzzle, because if she got maimed when we're out in the woods, it turns out when dogs are hurt, they're in a lot of pain, and they might take that out on you even if you are their person. And you need to carry said dog out of the wilderness. So we're actually adding a small mesh muzzle. They're super lightweight. They compress down to nothing. But if for some reason Pete broke a leg, I could put that muzzle on her and carry her on my back without worry about her trying to bite me, etc. So, or bite someone else who is helping to carry her out. So take care of you and your animals out there. It's important.
I've had to carry JD out before, and it's just not very fun.
It's not fun.
No.
Okay. The next two are both nutrition categories, so we might have some overlap. Actually, before we do that, someone mentioned not having high country gear. Don't forget your stuff. Someone said they missed an obvious turn because they were exhausted. And then someone said taking a bad headlamp or torch as their spare for a running race, which we've all done. We've all taken like a stupid little headlamp before as our spare. And they had to run down many French coals with 100 lumens. And it turns out 100 lumens is not enough.
Yikes.
So diving into training nutrition and then some race nutrition. We harp a lot on here about eating a lot and eating enough always, you know, pre-run, during, and post-exercise. But I'm wondering if you've ever done anything that has left you running for the bushes. An example I have is that I have a fixation with gummy candies, and I once ate so many gummy bears, the brand will remain unnamed, that I gave myself GI distress on the run because they were in the car and I just kept snacking on them.
Oh, gosh.
So I'm just wondering if anyone has had any sort of training nutrition that has gone awry. I've also had, this is like early spring days. Spring, I think, has evolved in some of their processing, but I had an expired spring gel and it was so bad. You'll know if you have one that's expired, but
I had one of those before.
Yeah, I don't think it's happened recently, but they're very perishable. They're more perishable than like a normal maltodextrin based gel. So yeah, it was the only fuel I had with me was expired spring gels.
I'm trying to think if I've ever had that. I've definitely had it in races where I was like training with something and then like it worked fine. But then like after it was like a magic number after hour 5, I was like, oh, I'm going to be sick. And then I've never been able to use those gels again.
I had too much bacon pre-run once. That was also like not great because I was trying to run hard.
Yeah, that's not good.
I feel like I've done this so many times. I think sometimes I'm like, oh, like it's right before the run. It's fine. But like really it should be at least 30 minutes or an hour before the run. And I feel like I'm like, oh, I'll try this or I'll try this. And one day I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot I told my friend I'd go to his birthday dinner. It's like a Chinese restaurant. Like, I don't have time to do my workout before, so I'm going to do it after. No.
Solid. solid GI. It's one of those things where it's like you might not end up in the bushes, but you feel awful the entire time.
Oh, it was nasty. I bailed on the workout, did it the next day because I was like, I can't move. I'm so way down by this Chinese slop. Like, how am I supposed to run? I thought it'd be a good GI test, and it was like just the stupidest thing ever. Of course, you can't
failed
run after that. Like,
yeah. I was doing 1 minute hill repeats, and I had eaten like an entire bag of Skittles right before I left the trailhead because, once again, I have a candy fixation, if you can't tell. My dentist knows as well. And yeah, I didn't vomit, but I felt like I was going to puke like every single repeat, which also just happens on like 1 minute repeats. But like it was bad. The write-ins were hilarious on this one, including not enough snacks. Joanna, she wrote in and said she ate too many pancakes before a long run. And I was like, oh, excuse me, we love pancakes, but they are not waffles. Someone said they didn't eat enough or drank enough on a run because they got distracted talking with their friends. Like you're just 20 miles in all of a sudden, you like haven't had any snacks because you're just too busy gabbing. And then also not getting in enough fueling the day before a long run, which I've definitely been victim to. Or running at a weird time.
Hard. Yeah.
I've also run at a weird time where it was like too late post breakfast and I didn't have another snack. And I've just like I've bonked at like mile 3 of like an easy endurance run on a Tuesday before. So.
Yeah. If I've made it now, if I don't run by 9, I have to have second breakfast.
I like that plan. I'm game. Tying into this is race nutrition. And we're kind of like, we're winding things down a little bit here. And this is hopefully a reflection on things that we have learned over time. But sometimes it takes a little while for us to learn. Some of the most recent mistakes for me, well, my first ever trail race, I thought pretzels sounded like a really good idea. And I put like a whole just a gob of them in my mouth as I left an aid station and proceeded to feel like I was going to like choke or die as it just became a giant ball of pretzel in my mouth. So I had to spit out that pretzel, which was like 0, probably negative calories for the work I put into it. Oh, Leadville, I was like, I fuel on Skittles all the time. It's going to be great. Turns out you have no saliva racing sometimes. And so I just had this like wad of Skittle in my mouth. Also didn't work. Learned that I could fuel on bananas and Scratch Labs drink mix. That got me through Leadville, I'm pretty sure. And then most recently, Cascade Crest this summer, I got kind of into a nutrition funk. I got vomity. I've puked up everything on the market. You guys have heard me say this. This is why the feed is great because they just keep giving me new product for me to try, for me to puke back up. But I got really stubborn at Cascade Crest, and it took me like 40 miles of just like feeling horrible and not wanting to fix the problem before I finally accepted help and then like ran a brilliant last 20 miles of this race. But I had to punish myself for like 40 miles before I figured it out. So don't, do as we say, not as we do, I think is the take-home message from my end anyway. Racing mishaps on the nutrition front. What do you guys got?
I mean, I have a few. I don't think I want to say this out loud. I don't want to jinx myself, but no, I'm just saying like, I haven't like had one where I've had like thrown up like during a race. I felt like pretty nauseous and sick to my stomach. But when that happens, I generally just try to like back off the nutrition a little bit and then like try to ease it in. I did have a pretty bad one where like, I don't know, my stomach just stopped, where I was pretty nauseous for a while and I was like living off of like bubbly water and like I don't even know.
Turns out that has 0 calories in it.
Oh, exactly. Bubbly water and like it would make me burp, and then like some electrolyte mix, like Pedialyte or something like this. This was in Spain, but like it was one of those of just like, I think we talked about this on the last episode of, just like slowing down if it's not your day, and just to like, it was really dependent on effort. So it was one of those things of just practicing in patience and like, okay, do I want to finish this race, or like, what am I practicing here? It was a new distance for me. And so I just decided to slow down and kind of just like wait for my stomach to come back online. And I think that was one of my first experiences racing in a foreign country where they had like cheese and crackers. And I was like,
welcome to Euro aid stations.
Yeah, like I didn't really know what to eat, and then I hadn't really trained before with like real food, so that's now something I do regularly because I think that's why Keely and I are bar people. But like just training with regular food, so that when you go to Europe, it's you can kind of well, at least when I go there quite a lot to race, I can be a little bit more practiced. But the biggest horror story I have is like, I just still have like palate fatigue from some huckleberry hammer gels.
It sounds like a rut problem.
It sounds like a run the rut problem. It was actually happened to run the rut, I'm pretty sure. So I can never have that flavor or even that brand ever again. So sorry, but
sorry, not sorry. Keely, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm laughing because I'm reading some of these responses that came in from the listeners. And one of them is getting tired and then getting sad and realizing that all you really needed was a snack. And I think
that was my favorite. And no, they said snacky. They wrote snacky, yeah. They said I got really tired and got really sad, and I like didn't know why. And then I just realized that I needed a snacky.
Yeah, and I think that just like encompasses my fueling journey through the beginning of my career so perfectly, because you just get really down on yourself. You're like, I hate running. I don't want to do this. And it's like, all you need is food. So just eat something. Stop being so stubborn. And I think realizing that when you do have those thoughts, it's not because you hate running. It's because your body needs something. It's like, I need sugar. This
happened on the run that Steven proposed on, which I think I've shared this story before. I got like real hangry, like running back to the car after this proposal. And Steven's like, I think you just need to eat something. And I was like, I just ate something. And then I like ate something more. And I was like, oh, actually, I feel amazing
JT
now.
And I have this conversation all the time.
I'm like, Steven, you just got to carry little snackies for me.
I'm like, I did. I had a gummy. And he's like, have the whole package of gummies.
Sorry, boys.
I am still so impressed with you both. And your partners still love you. Like, it's so great. I think maybe I should have more snacks because
I listen to them and then I eat the whole package and then I feel amazing. And I'm like, oh,
this is relationship advice for Hillary.
Okay. Have more snacks and then talk to boys.
I think I've said this on the pod before, but test your gels in the climate you're going to race in. Mm-hmm. I took chocolate gels to States. No, that's just
too warm
when it's 100 degrees. Yeah, so don't.
I like that,
friends.
Yeah. So write-ins that we had said not realizing how salty I sweat and ending up death marching hot races. That was Dan. I feel ya. Not carrying contingency nutrition and getting drop bags mixed up while packing. Yeah, have done that mistake, or like just backup nutrition or nutrition that you think's like other things that you think might work for you. Needing a little snacky, and then under fueling, not stopping at an aid station and just panic running like I was being chased equals bonk. And then Keely wrote, LOL, this is what a bonk is, people. Reach it. But yeah, no, we just had a lot of us made mistakes, including just like going out too fast in races. Someone wrote in that they paced the first they ran the first 50K of the 50 mile like in a PR time, etc. So yeah, be careful, folks. Running, what running giveth, running taketh away. Wardrobe malfunction is what I'm titling this next one, but like I promise it's not scandalous. But I'm wondering if you've ever thought like this is going to be perfect for this race and it doesn't. Like that horrible 100 lumen headlamp is a great example. I don't know. I was like, man, like I feel like it was confusing when we started running, and running shorts had liners in them and you weren't sure if they were supposed to wear underwear with them or not. Like, have you had to use all of your mandatory gear before? And like which I have, TDS, stuck in a storm, wore everything I had in my bag and was still cold. Turns out when you bring nylons for your tights to save weight, they might not be warm enough. But the one that really stuck out to me was one of the years I ran the rut. They ended up modifying the course because it was icy on top of Lone Peak, so we couldn't go up there. And it was like
we ran the same one that year. Yeah.
2016, I want to say. Yeah, I think it was the fall of 2016. And I raced in a tank top and a buff and gloves because that's what you do. And Steven was planning to go up to the aid station that you could take the chair to, like the gondola to, or the ski lift to. And I got up there, and I want to say it was like Luke Nelson working the aid station. And he was like, what do you need? And I was like, a boyfriend? Because Steven was supposed to be there with my jacket. And he's like, we don't have boyfriends here, so sorry. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep running. And I just like ran out of the aid station by myself. But yeah, like that was dumb. Like why? By the time I got to them with a jacket, I couldn't, my hands didn't work, etc. So it was just like kind of silly rookie mistakes. That was like my first year running trail races, really. First year running ultras was that year. And yeah, just like, it was dumb. I should have had a jacket on. It was very silly, but it was in a very controlled environment, and I feel fortunate. If that had been a longer race or a bigger race with longer time between aid stations, that could have ended very differently. So what about you guys? Have you ever had some equipment malfunction, wardrobe malfunction, be it in training or, here's a great one. So cold running on the North Shore of Vancouver. It's like 0 degrees Celsius. It's like not snowing, but it is raining. And I've done my run 2 hours in one direction, 2 hours in another direction. So I could use my car as an aid station. And I legitimately, my hands were so cold that I had to ask a woman at the trailhead to help me take my shirt off because I needed to get like out of my wet clothes and my hands were too cold. Like I could not get the shirt off. And so I asked a stranger to help undress me. That was a wardrobe malfunction, but I got warm again eventually.
That's happened to me on a bike, but, and running, but like, I mean, I have 2 stories, but like just quickly, but, can I share something about periods?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay.
This is the Trail Society podcast. We talk largely about menstruation.
I don't know if this is technically a wardrobe malfunction, but yes, I guess it's like, so it's happened a couple times where like I've started my period on a long run or like but like on a long run or a long ride, particularly like when I'm out in the backcountry, like on a multiple day like expedition type thing. And like, that's their, to be honest, like it's kind of scary because it's like especially if there's like
periods don't attract bears.
I know, just like exactly like things like that. I'm like thinking like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get attacked? I'm just like, okay, Hillary. But mostly it was just uncomfortable and it was just, like something else like to deal with. And that's actually where I really like the Oura Ring because now I can use it. I can kind of track if I'm before like preparing to go on a trip or a camping trip, like, okay, because it kind of accurately predicts your period starting within, for me at least, between 1 to 2 days. And then the other wardrobe malfunctions, like I said, I always bring, a certain amount of gear for when I'm going up into the high country, no matter, and this is literally something, no matter the distance of the trail. I did a multi-sport adventure outside of Leadville. I rode my bike to the trailhead and then I was going to do Mount Sherman. It was literally, I was getting back into running. It was a very short little jaunt, literally 2 miles to the top and 2 miles down. So not that long. But a storm rolled in very quickly and there was like hail and, I had my jacket, like everything, everything that I brought with me for just a little, a very small outing. But I used every single piece of gear and I still got pelted with hail and like, cause it was 40-mile-per-hour winds and I had like little bruises all over my legs and arms through my like rain pants and jacket. So
brutal.
Bring it no matter what.
Yeah. Keely, what about you?
One time I was going to a race and the shorts I wanted to wear, I ran in the like 2 days before, and got in a hot tub and the hot tub disintegrated the shorts.
Oh gosh.
And so then they were just flopped open everywhere. And so I could not wear those shorts. And so then I had to wear like some random short that I didn't really train in. And I just remember hating that short. So key lesson there, bring backup shorts that you like, always backup stuff everywhere, and don't go in the hot tub with your favorite shorts until after the race, and then maybe if they disintegrate, it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, I've heard chafing horror stories too, right? Like people got into like salt water in those shorts and then wore them, etc. And it's just like they left them to dry and then they wore them for the next training run, etc. And it was just like chafe city from that saltiness. Many of you wrote in about like just like running or racing in worn out shoes, and that causing like either foot or calf issues. Many of you, more than I ever anticipated, wrote in about forgetting to bring your poop kit on runs, i.e. like that little plastic baggie that you keep around with like toilet paper and hand sanitizer in it. A lot of people wrote in about that. And someone wrote, the length of the run does not discriminate your need for a poop kit. Someone tightened the shoelace too hard and ignored it anyway. One of my favorites was trusting the watch distance during a race. I think we've all been there where you're like, where's the aid station? Where's the finish line? We're never going to get there. And then someone spilled very sticky drink all over them 1 kilometer into a race, and that resulted in chafing down the road, which sounds like a really horrible wardrobe malfunction. To close things out, I don't know. I kind of had written something about assumptions. I don't know if you guys have one off the top of your head that'd be kind of short and fast, but this idea, like, you know what they say about assumptions, right? When you assume things. And I'm wondering if you guys had an assumption about trail running or running in general when you got, or a specific race even, when you got into it, and like you can look back now and be like, what was I thinking? For me, it was like, I signed up for Gorge 100K as my first ever ultra. And I was like, that sounds like a great idea. And ran Chuckanut just a few weeks before that. And it was one of those things where I had to reflect on this idea that like 100K isn't just twice as long as a 50K. It's like actually a lot longer from like a physiological standpoint. And that was an assumption I had early on. That was like, oh, it's just twice as far. It's not just anything. It's a whole different race environment, et cetera.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just been like assuming that you can complete these races with as little fuel as possible. And that's just not sustainable and also not true.
Yeah. What about you, Hillary?
Like, I think I spoke about like the longer the race goes, and especially for I think longer like time out there, it's like I just have to have real food. It's like making sure I have almost like meals during the race.
Yeah. I watched you run out of an aid station at UTCT with a whole sweet potato in your hand.
The best ever. It was so great. Oh man, I remember that. Like, I think it was the live comment. Like, what is that she's eating?
That's an entire sweet potato.
Oh my gosh, it was so scrumptious.
Yeah.
And then I think at TDS I had like bowls of rice, and then at UTMB I also had that. And I think it's like that mentality that I had to get used to, because I'm like, okay, but I'm not running as fast. Like, so say like a Western States, like 100-mile race, it'll take under 20 hours. But for UTMB, it's like you're still running the same distance, but just like with more elevation gain, and it takes longer. I'm like, oh, but I'm going slower, so I don't really need as much. For me, the opposite is true. So
yeah, you need more solids, I think, is the big thing. You can't rely, I think, as easily on gels. And what people wrote in was kind of all over the place in that regard. It was like feeling like just checking the boxes is enough to succeed, right? Like doing the bare minimum, I'm good to go. Someone said, again, letting comparison with my training partners dictate my why for a race, which I thought was really interesting. This is from one of Steven's childhood friends, and I think it's amazing. And he wrote in, not racing when things didn't feel perfect, when in hindsight, it was as good as it gets. And like that one like hits like really close to home. And I think that's like really a kind of like a beautiful like reflection. Someone wrote in, being too negative and self-critical, you miss out on the fun and joy and mindfulness and perform worse. Someone wrote in, not listening to my own intuition when my body is tired. Another person wrote in, mentally giving up in races before I learned that it, quote, never always gets worse. And then these last two are beautiful. This first one's from Stephanie Flippin, and the second one is from former Trust Society guest Callie Vinson. And so Stephanie wrote in and said, thinking that growth/fitness needs constant new stimuli versus consistency at similar efforts. And then Callie wrote in, and I think this is really pertinent to all of us, that saying yes to too many social obligations before an A race. Can't do that. You got to protect them energies. And I like really felt that in a big way. So thanks for everyone who wrote in, and there's like plenty more that I didn't get to read. You all are magical humans in that regard. So to end things out, the feed, we love you. We're trying all your snacks, I promise. Anyone have a nutrition win before we do Society Slam?
I have a win this weekend. So Rachel showed me the new precision gummies. They're like little mochis.
Yeah.
Like little Turkish delights. Like one's mint and one's lemon, and they're the
30
best.
30 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
And we crushed a run together, and every 20 minutes we were like, what are you eating? Then she would eat and I would eat. And then we'd say, what are you eating? She would eat, I would eat. And then we were out of fuel, and I was like, we have a little bit of time left. Why don't we split this little mochi packet? And it was because of the feed that we had those little mochis that are precision hydration gummies that I like to call mochis, because that's what they kind of texture is like. And I literally think they're amazing. So
yeah, like the lemon and the mint, like those being the two flavors, and like they're each 15 grams of carbs. They are chef's kiss, perfection.
I like
Turkish delights.
The original,
like the original flavor.
Too. Yeah,
I've never tried the original. I'm all about that lemon and the mint.
So good. Yeah, and me too. Like another nutrition win is like, I was like, oh, I have 30 minutes left in my long run. Okay, I'm still gonna eat it. I'm still gonna eat like finish the stuff that's in my pack.
That's a huge win.
Synthesis.
That's a huge win. Okay. Hillary, you want to read the first Society Slam?
Cool. All right. Here we go. I'm a big fan of the pod and love the emphasis on science, but also love that you elevate women's sports in general and not just running. Huge fan and always looking forward to new episodes when they drop. Thanks. Okay. As someone who is trying to conceive, I'm curious about something that maybe you can speak or answer to. You touched on this topic at points in various episodes about how low amounts of data or not having enough research on women in pregnancy or postpartum. Let's say I'm interested in being a study participant. Obviously depends on the study. Is there a way to connect with researchers? And just curious about what you know. Thanks again.
I guess to kick it off, and then I'll hand it over to Keely. One of the reasons there's a lack of data is because like IRB boards, so institutional review boards, and or ethics committees, depending on where you're located in the world, really just do not like to approve studies that test this population. Like even if they're testing, like say they're testing a medication and they're testing it on the population, like at large in quotes, they oftentimes pregnancy is an exclusion from the study because they don't want to run a test that could harm someone, et cetera. That's not about being pregnant. It's not about postpartum, but that is one of the reasons why pregnant women or postpartum women, et cetera, are oftentimes excluded from research is because that it's oftentimes not approved by an IRB board, but that is different than a study that is specifically on pregnant women or postpartum women.
Yeah. And I threw this on here because I just thought it would be really cool to put that question out to our Trail Society universe and see if we have anybody who has like resources or is doing a study that could use like someone who is postpartum or knows of studies coming down the pipeline or knows of a database that shows upcoming studies at certain institutions. So the one thing that I did have as a recommendation is sometimes if you go to your local hospital or local college, they do have like pages of their research tabs. If you go to their research like tab, it normally has like slots where it talks about current research that's being underdone. So you can
as a recruitment strategy, that's what I'd look for. But yeah, if you're conducting research, slide into our DMs.
Yeah.
I'll read this next one. And they said, hi, I just wanted to say thank you for all your content on Red S, women's bodies, fueling, and pregnancy/postpartum. I had no period for almost 15 years, then worked hard to get it back, and I finally got pregnant. I stayed healthy during my pregnancy and actually was able to run a 50K at 26 weeks. Rock star. I then stuck to a slow build back to running after having my son, thanks to my rock star coaches, and was able to run a trail marathon and 50K before my son turned 1. I'm now pregnant again and have a 1.5-year-old at home. I've been struggling a bit with running as I enter my 3rd trimester. I'm going slow and steady, especially if it's a stroller run, and reminding myself that every body is different and every pregnancy is different. I love listening to your episodes during runs, and I am motivated by your stories and race updates. Thank you for all you do, and I'll be back to racing next summer. I have like legitimate chills, and I don't think it's because it's cold in my house. Like that's just like, it's really beautiful because they're listening to their bodies, which is just, it's huge. Like you're in a big life change, and she's right. Every pregnancy is different as well. It's not that if you ran through your last pregnancy, you might not be able to run through this one, et cetera. So that's just really special to hear. Keely, bring us home.
The final one, I'm going to audible a little bit just because I've had 3 conversations that are all kind of intertwined, but I've had 3 physicians independently reach out through Trail Society and through my personal DMs talking about how they work with pregnant women or menopausal women or young girl athletes and how they really focus on like interacting with their patients and building community. And I just wanted to really emphasize that like Trail Society as a whole, we think that there's a lot of amazing physicians out there that are.
Yeah, we don't hate doctors. I married one.
Yeah, like there's just like some physicians in the world who are not akin to these kind of like disorders and really in tune with female athletes, but there's also so many of you that are doing amazing work. So I just want to kind of shout you guys out. One doctor in particular talking about menopause was saying that a lot of women will come to them asking for blood tests and wanting to know their estrogen levels and all these things. And they just wanted us to kind of remind people that, you know, looking at estrogen and progesterone is a really hard measure for determining what stage of menopause you're in unless you're postmenopausal. So it's really more like building that relationship with your doctor so the doctor can create like the diagnosis clinically by understanding all of your symptoms and then using the blood diagnosis more as a tool to make sure there's not other things going on, and then seeing like, you know, does this person need hormone supplementation? Do they need to change some of their lifestyle parameters, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not just a blood test that will help you figure that menopause out, but finding just a doctor who you can have conversations with and really look bigger picture.
Yeah, because it's a diagnosis of exclusion, right? They have to eliminate anything else it could be. And then it's like, well, it's not anything else. So it's likely perimenopause. It's likely menopause, et cetera, which is a good thing to point out. But yeah, and the thing is too, it's like, yeah, there are doctors that are stuck in the Stone Age, that exist out there that are still practicing medicine. And they are generally not doing harm. But if you don't find that you can have a conversation with your doctor and they're not listening to you, because there are good resources and good research out there that you can bring with you to your physician, maybe that just means you got to find a new primary care provider. There are amazing DNPs that are working in these roles as well. So yeah, it's like if the one doctor is not the right doctor for you, there are other doctors out there. So keep kind of scouring your community as well, because you will find the right person to have in your corner. Just like a coach, a good primary care provider is just like a coach, and that you're a team together. Okay, doctors. Yeah, my dad's like a 65-year-old family practice doctor in Wisconsin, so this is like near and dear to my heart. I'm always updating him on things. Okay, we love you all. You're amazing. Continue to slide into our DMs with your wins, your nutrition wins, those new sick navy blue amazing Trail Society bottles. Come say hi at Gorge. Keely and I will be there in the flesh. And until next time, we'll see you on the trails.